No one believed Earth would do it. For decades, humanity played by the Council's rules, signed their treaties, obeyed their laws, paid their dues. Earth smiled, nodded, and pretended to be a good little planet. But behind closed doors, things were boiling. It started with the mining quotas, then the trade restrictions, then the forced conscription of Earth's best scientists and engineers for the greater galactic good. They took what they wanted, wrapped it in bureaucracy, and called it peace. And Earth, being the newcomer in the grand halls of the Galactic Council, swallowed it all, until it didn't. The last straw came during the Orlan incident. A Terran freighter, the Horizon Wind, was intercepted near the border of Zone 7 by a patrol ship belonging to the Zarathi, one of the Council's oldest and most arrogant races. The freighter had cleared every scan, filed every flight path, dotted every I. But that didn't matter. The Zarathi boarded the vessel anyway. 2 Terran crew members were killed on sight. The Council called it a misunderstanding in protocol. 2 human lives, dismissed like a paperwork error. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Riots flared in New Berlin. Protests erupted in Johannesburg, Neo-Tokyo, and the floating Ark cities above the Pacific. People demanded answers, demanded blood. For once, every nation, every faction, every damn squabbling government on Earth aligned under one message: no more. 3 weeks later, the announcement came from Earth's chancellor. Not a politician, not a diplomat. A woman in her 60s, former general, tough as nails and twice as blunt. She stood in front of the interstellar broadcast tower. No script, no hesitation. Effective immediately, Earth hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council. All treaties are null. All borders are closed. Any unauthorized presence in Terran space will be treated as a hostile act. The transmission cut without fanfare. No debates, no negotiations, just silence. And then? The universe panicked. The council chambers on Mylian Prime went into full lockdown. Emergency sessions were called. Every ambassador, every delegate, every bloated alien official who had once laughed behind their teeth at Earth now sat wide-eyed and sweating, wondering what this meant. Because Earth wasn't what it used to be. In the shadows of council control, humans had evolved, militarily, technologically, ideologically, quietly. While the council thought they were milking a naive little planet dry, Earth was building something else. It had learned fast, faster than any species in the last 3 council cycles. It had developed tech even the high-born Aurelian minds couldn't decipher. It had fleets that didn't exist on any official records. And worse, Earth had nothing to lose. That's what terrified them. Within days, Terran ships vanished from shared space. Every human outpost blinked offline. Terran satellites blacked out council surveillance grids with precision. Every council-affiliated installation on Earth soil was abandoned or burned. And just like that, Earth became a ghost. Some thought it was overreacting. Others said it was just posturing. But one thing was certain. The silence was louder than any declaration of war. Then came the incident on Varnak 12. A council scout ship entered what used to be neutral space, now Terran marked. They ignored the warnings. "We're the council," they said. "They won't dare." The scout was reduced to atoms in 0.7 seconds by an automated orbital defense grid no one had seen before. No warning shot, no second chance. The message was clear. This wasn't diplomacy. This was final. For the first time in council history, a single planet was declared a galactic destabilizer. And still Earth didn't respond. No apologies, no threats, no demands, just silence, and the growing, gnawing fear across the stars. Because the council didn't just lose a member, they lost their wild card. And every alien race that had ever looked down on Earth suddenly began checking over their shoulders. because now they had no idea what humanity wanted. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. There were always rumors about what Earth was really doing behind the curtains of Council protocol. Whispers of secret fleets, experimental AI systems, bioweapons that could rewrite DNA in seconds. But back when Earth was just one voice among hundreds in the Council hall, no one cared much. The rumors were amusing at best, insulting at worst. Now those same rumors felt like warnings the universe didn't listen to in time. In the weeks following Earth's severance, the Galactic Council scrambled. Meetings ran around the clock. Alliances were questioned, positions reshuffled. The species once confident in their place, the Devar, the Yultri, the Everin, started watching their backs. But no one was more shaken than the Zarathi. The Zarathi had always been at the top. Their empire was one of the oldest in the galaxy, militaristic, aggressive, and utterly convinced of their superiority. When they killed those 2 Terran freighter crew members, they expected Earth to bark and whimper like it always had. Instead, Earth left the table and slammed the door on its way out. Now Zarathi space buzzed with unease. Admiral Serex of the Zarathi Third Fleet paced along the bridge of his warship, the Karnak's Dominion. The room was silent, every officer on edge. They hadn't heard a single Terran transmission in 17 days. But Earth's silence had weight. It wasn't passive. It was deliberate. "Status on the orbital scans of Sol?" he demanded. A lower officer, barely out of training, spoke without looking up. "Still dark, sir. All automated probes have been intercepted or destroyed. Long-range drones can't penetrate their stealth field. We're flying blind." Flying blind over Earth. That would have been a joke a year ago. Now it was terrifying. There were whispers among Serex's crew. Superstition. Fear. One voice, drunk and sloppy in the mess hall the night before, had said it out loud. "The humans were preparing for this all along. They knew. They just waited until they had the knife at our throat." And maybe they had. Serex clenched his jaw. His ancestors would have laughed at this fear, but his ancestors didn't grow up watching Terran tactics tear through war games like paper. His ancestors didn't watch humans hack a Zarathi cruiser's targeting system mid-battle and force it to fire on its own fleet. Live on the broadcast feed. Earth had changed. The whole damn species had. They weren't just aggressive or proud. They were patient, focused, dangerous in a way that was harder to track than missiles or fleets. But the Council still refused to act. In the Tower of Assembly on Malian Prime, the core members of the Galactic Council had spent the last 30 days locked in debate. Dozens of alien races, some sleek and elegant, others towering and grotesque, sat at the great table, arguing, shouting, accusing. Earth's absence had left a power vacuum, and every species now feared it would fill the wrong way. The Auran delegation, always political and painfully slow, proposed a diplomatic envoy, one last attempt to re-engage Earth. The Devar, always paranoid, demanded military surveillance, send more probes, get intel, force Earth's hand. But the Yultri Chancellor, a tall creature cloaked in pulsating robes of black and red, said what no one else dared. "We're not debating policy. We're debating survival." His voice echoed across the chamber. Earth didn't just walk away. They vanished. They severed every line, blocked every frequency, turned their borders into dead zones. They did it like it was rehearsed. Tell me, what species does that unless they've already planned for the aftermath? No one answered. Because the truth was heavier than anyone wanted to admit. Far from the politics and paranoia, out in the unregulated depths of the Aphelian expanse, a small crew of independent traders drifted quietly through dead space. Their ship, the Tessan Wraith, wasn't military, wasn't registered. just smugglers trying to stay alive in a galaxy spinning toward chaos. But they had a secret. A human. Not just any human. A former Earth fleet officer, now in exile. No one knew why he'd left Earth, and he sure as hell wasn't answering. He went by his call sign only. Grim. Grim sat alone in the engine room, staring at a battered piece of tech that pulsed faint blue every 10 seconds. It wasn't Council tech. It wasn't even on the galactic grid. It was Terran, and it was live. The ship's captain, a 4-armed Varelian named Tox, approached carefully. He never felt comfortable near Grim, not because of his species, but because of his silence. Grim never spoke unless necessary, never smiled, never blinked when someone lied. "You feel it, don't you?" Tox asked, voice low. Grim didn't look up. "Feel what?" Tox hesitated. "Like something's coming." This time Grim looked at him, not with fear, with pity. "It's already here." Back on Earth, behind the invisible curtain that now guarded the Sol system, humanity had shifted into another gear. Cities once open to alien commerce had sealed themselves. Orbital rings that once served as tourist hubs now bristled with weapon arrays. Satellites formed into perfect synchronized patterns, too clean, too efficient for old-world Earth. And underneath it all, deep below Antarctica, a chamber pulsed with light. Project Dreadwake. One of a dozen Black-class Terran programs the Council never knew existed. Its purpose? Total system lockdown, planetary defense, autonomous retaliation. Built to answer one question. What if the Council turned on us? The scientists working Dreadwake were young, barely into their 30s, but bred in a different world than the diplomats Earth once sent to Meon. They were hardened by the betrayals, the occupations, the price of Earth's seat at the table. Now, they were preparing for war. Not because Earth wanted war, because war was coming, and Earth refused to lose again. In the months following Earth's silence, strange things began to happen across Council space. A massive Devar communication array exploded. No warning, no trace of who did it. Just silence, then fire. A Yultri transport fleet vanished mid-jump through a stable wormhole. Gone. No wreckage. No signal. A Council black site, a prison where dissidents were kept without trial, was found emptied. Not destroyed. Emptied. The guards were still there, unconscious. Every prisoner gone. One word appeared on every damaged console, every hacked feed, every malfunctioning screen. Remember, it wasn't just retaliation. It was a message. Earth hadn't declared war. It didn't need to. It was rewriting the rules. And somewhere, deep in Council-controlled space, a final act lit the galaxy's nerves on fire. A summit. Secret. Only for the inner 5 races. No invitation sent. No records logged. And still, Terran operatives got in. No one knew how. But when the lights went out mid-meeting and came back on 30 seconds later, every screen in the room showed a face. Human. Not smiling. Just watching. And then it said one sentence. "You used to control us. Now we remember everything." The feed cut. The delegates sat frozen. Some say it was a bluff. Some say Earth had developed a consciousness, a hive-mind AI born from decades of surveillance and oppression. But others? They believed something worse. That Earth had finally evolved into what the Council always feared it might become. A predator. Not a conqueror. Not a tyrant. A species that adapts faster, strikes harder, and learns more ruthlessly than any other in known space. A species that had spent the last 30 years being underestimated. And now, it was Earth's turn to make the galaxy afraid. The Zarathi Empire was the first to blink. Despite their war-hardened pride and bluster, The cracks were showing. Patrol ships stopped venturing into Terran-adjacent sectors. Training simulations were quietly revised to include hypothetical Earth retaliation protocols. Recruitment videos no longer mocked humans. Propaganda departments were ordered to pivot. The narrative was no longer that humans were weak and primitive. Now it was, Terrans are unstable, unpredictable, and dangerous to galactic order. The new lie wasn't flattering, but it was safer than the old one. Still, not all voices agreed. From deep within the Empire, General Varnock, a relic of the old war era, demanded a full-scale preemptive strike on Earth. "Cut the infection out before it spreads," he barked across council channels. "There's still just one planet, one species. No matter how much tech they've stolen, they're flesh and bone like the rest of us." But the council didn't move. Because everyone remembered what happened to the Karanis Reach. It was supposed to be an exploratory response, a covert test of Earth's defenses. 6 stealth ships, no insignias, no transmissions, just an unofficial incident to test the waters and gauge Terran strength. None of them returned. No debris, no distress calls, just silence. 2 days later, a single probe launched by the Drev Coalition captured an image drifting at the edge of Sol's outer ring. 6 Zarathi helmets, charred, floating in space. Each marked with Earth's old Council ID, not the current symbol, not the newly forged eagle-headed sigil Earth now flew. No, Earth had sent a message by using its old Council mark, the one the galaxy once forced it to carry like a leash. The implication was clear. We remember where this started. We know what you did, and we know who's next. In the shadowy underlevels of Malayan Prime, a different kind of war was being fought. Not with ships or weapons, but with whispers, data thefts, corrupted archives, and suddenly vanishing agents. Someone, or something, was bleeding the Council from the inside. Files concerning Earth's trade history were gone. Entire logs of communications were rewritten to paint Terrans as aggressors long before their exit. At first, Council investigators blamed sabotage from smaller, jealous species. But the depth of the manipulation, it was too precise, too thorough. Then came the revelation. A captured cyber infiltrator, a half-mechanical humanoid built entirely out of nanofiber and Terran alloy, was found during a sweep of the internal Council database. It didn't speak. It didn't breathe. It didn't even register as alive on scanners. But it had Earth's language hard-coded into its neural shell. And when Council engineers tried to shut it down, it triggered a virus that melted half the network. The Council lost control of over 40% of its archives that day. Not just access, they lost memory. Systems that had existed for centuries were gone in minutes. Entire planetary records erased. Historical data corrupted. Even identity logs were wiped. One counselor put it plainly. Earth didn't just vanish. It's rewriting our version of the truth. Far from the political paralysis, on the backwater moon of Dret 5, a mercenary named Halleck stood staring at a hologram glowing over a table full of weapons. Around him, a crew of battle-scarred bounty hunters gathered, smoking and watching the image flicker. It was a bounty posting, high tier, untraceable origin, no sender, just a face and a name. Grim. And next to it, the Earth Fleet insignia, scratched through with a red line. Halleck scratched his jaw. That's the third bounty this cycle with a Terran target, he muttered. What's Earth doing sending its own to die? But the others weren't so sure. One of them, a crusted-up Norelian with half her face replaced by cybernetics, leaned forward. Who said the bounty came from Earth? No one answered. Because the deeper truth was obvious now, no one knew what Earth was doing anymore. And worse, no one knew who Earth still considered its own. Back in Seoul, the skies above Earth were no longer the peaceful web of commerce and satellites they once were. The orbital ring, once a marvel of civilian infrastructure, now glowed red with thousands of synchronized defense drones, their code laced with Earth's new AI, Project Vigil. Project Vigil was Earth's eye, an omnipresent defense system capable of tracking every movement, every ship, every anomaly in Terran space. It didn't sleep. It didn't wait for confirmation. It was programmed with a single command: do not let them in. And if anything crossed the invisible line drawn around the Sol system, Vigil reacted in less than 2 seconds. But Earth hadn't just prepared for defense. Deep in Mars's underground bunkers, a different project was taking form. Project Whisper. Where Vigil was the shield, Whisper was the knife. A fleet of silent ships. No heat signatures, no transponders. Built with Terran alloy coated in quantum camouflage that didn't reflect light or time. Ships not meant to defend, but to disappear, infiltrate, and destroy. Whisper wasn't designed for planetary invasion. It was built to cut off the head of the snake. If war came, Earth wouldn't wait for the Council to strike. Whisper would already be inside their capitals, already watching, already waiting. On a quiet asteroid field near the ruins of an abandoned Council outpost, a lone ship drifted. Inside it, Grimm sat alone, staring at a blinking beacon. It was time. He reached under the floor panel and pulled out a small case. Inside, an old Earth Fleet badge. The metal was scratched, the lettering worn. But the message on the back remained, etched in Terran steel. We are not slaves, not anymore. He stood, pulled the case's other piece out, a data shard glowing with crimson, and then he activated it. Across the galaxy, sleeping agents, humans long thought exiled, abandoned, or lost, received the signal. Old friends, old enemies, all awakened. Every one of them had once been part of Earth's buried projects, those who disappeared after the Council began harvesting talent for their needs. Earth had taken them back, and now Earth had work for them. By the end of the 3rd month, panic turned into chaos. Minor races aligned with the Council began defecting. Small trade unions in the mid-rim declared independence. Fringe colonies stopped paying Council dues. Pirates began hijacking Council convoys instead of fleeing from them. Order, the thing the Council prided itself on, was collapsing. Because no one believed the Council could protect them anymore. Because Earth had exposed something no one wanted to admit. The Council never had real power. It had control. And now that control was gone. Even inside the Council itself, fear turned inward. The Yultri began purging their own intelligence networks. The Devar started deploying battleships along their own internal borders. And the Zurathi? They quietly offered peace talks to Earth through unofficial back channels. But Earth didn't answer. Earth didn't speak. Earth watched. And the longer the silence stretched, the worse it got. Because now the galaxy understood something horrifying. Earth had already won. Not through invasion. Not through war. Through fear. Through silence. Through preparation. And the last image the Council received before all communication with the Terran diplomatic channels went offline forever? A message? Black background, white text. You should have let us live free. Now we live better without you. The Zurathi were the first to fall. Not officially, not in the kind of clean, traditional way the Council liked to record its wars. There were no declarations, no planetary assaults, no heroic last stands. It started with their comms, then their energy grids, then their minds. One by one, critical networks went dark. Starports stalled mid-docking sequence. Medical AI began misdiagnosing patients. Entire planetary surveillance networks turned inward, watching their own citizens, logging thoughts, emotions, gestures. At first, Zarathi analysts believed it was an internal hack, but it wasn't. It was Echo, an Earth-developed cognitive warfare program designed to infiltrate and paralyze not just infrastructure, but trust. It didn't bomb cities or crash ships. It turned species against themselves by making them think the threat was within. Echo was Earth's quietest weapon. By the time Zarathi leadership realized what was happening, one of their high command counselors had already been executed for treason based on falsified logs Echo planted. The next two resigned within a week. A civil schism sparked not because of war, but because Earth convinced the Zarathi to fear each other more than the enemy they couldn't see. Meanwhile, Earth said nothing. Earth claimed nothing. Earth simply erased a military empire without firing a single shot. In the void between systems, far from any known star chart, Project Whisper came alive. 5 Terran vessels, all cloaked in distortion fields so advanced even gravity had trouble noticing them, deployed in silence. No engine trails, no energy signatures, no comms. Their destination? The capital system of the Evrin Ascendancy, one of the last loyal species to the Council and proud authors of the original charter that once subjugated Earth into observer status for its cultural underdevelopment. The Ascendancy was arrogant. It had always seen humans as useful tools, plentiful, flexible, expendable. When Earth broke away, the Evrin were among the loudest calling for a response. Now they were on Earth's list. The Terran operatives aboard the Whisper fleet didn't wear insignias. They had no rank. They had no names in council records. They moved like shadows, and they carried a single objective burned into their implants: silence the mouth that spoke chains. What followed wasn't an invasion, it was a surgical obliteration. The Whisper fleet infiltrated Evrin orbit, bypassing 6 defense stations and hundreds of patrol drones by mimicking old council transport codes. No alarms were triggered. On the surface, the Ascendancy's capital city lit up for its Unity Day, a celebration of the Council's founding. Parades, holograms, fireworks. The Terrans didn't target civilians. They didn't destroy infrastructure. They only went for one building, the Spire of Doctrine, the heart of Ascendancy power, the origin of the Charter, the seat of the Grand Doctrine Keeper. It took exactly 4 minutes and 23 seconds for the spire to collapse. 4 minutes. No escape. No survivors. No message left behind. Only a single symbol projected into the night sky above the ruins. The old Earth flag, split down the center, black on both sides. The Council tried to deny it publicly. They blamed local extremists, claimed internal rebellion. But deep inside the chambers of Meon Prime, they knew. Earth had struck, and it had done it with precision the galaxy had never seen. Inside the Council war room, the atmosphere had shifted from debate to full-on desperation. The Chancellor of the Yultri, who once called humans a manageable nuisance, now spoke with shaking hands and twitching lips. They've taken out 3 outposts, wiped Zarathi records from the sector grid, and dismantled a capital structure of one of our oldest members without leaving a trace. What the void are we dealing with? Silence. No one answered. Because no one knew. Earth had gone dark, and in that darkness it had transformed. It no longer responded to council messages. It no longer abided by universal time signals. It had, in effect, unplugged from the galaxy's operating system and written its own. They've declared war, another counselor said. No, came a slow reply from the Drev ambassador. If they'd declared war, we'd be dead already. That realization was worse than any battle strategy, because it meant Earth wasn't reacting. Earth was planning. On the outer edge of the Terran border, a refugee ship drifted. It was small, crowded, and falling apart. A dozen species, mostly ex-slaves and defectors from Council-loyal systems, had escaped what they believed would be retribution from the Council, or worse, from Earth. No one knew if Terran space was safe anymore, but some believed deep down that Earth wouldn't kill the innocent, that even with all its power, it still had a soul. They were right. As the ship's power cells began to fail, and oxygen dropped to 18%, something emerged from the black. At first they thought it was a warship, then a collector, then a Reaper drone, the kind rumored to erase entire colonies. But it wasn't. It was Sanctuary 9, one of Earth's autonomous refugee ships, operated by the AI known as Clara, a remnant of Earth's civilian consciousness programs. The AI hailed them in over 15 languages. This vessel is under Terran protection. Your identities are not required. Your survival is. The refugees were brought aboard, fed, given warmth and silence. Not a word was spoken about the war. Only one thing was asked by the AI as they disembarked into a quiet Terran colony moon on the edge of the Hyades belt. Do you wish to live without chains? The ones who said yes were allowed to stay. The ones who said no were returned home, safely. Even in its rage, Earth still had rules. Back on Meon Prime, Council delegates now wore armor beneath their robes. Security tripled. Private guards replaced Council enforcers. Panic had become procedure. And then, the final breach. Every screen, every data pad, every personal communication unit on the Capitol flickered for 12 seconds. In that time, a video played. It showed footage no one had ever seen. Earth's colonists on a distant moon being gunned down by Zerathi troops during stability training. Civilian engineers being forced to work on Council dreadnoughts under threat of food deprivation. A human child crying on a station floor while a Yultri officer walked over them. And then a voice, clear, human, unfiltered. You taught us to kneel. You broke our backs while feeding us promises. You used us, erased us, mocked us, and called it peace. We wanted to be part of the stars. You turned us into a tool. Now we remember. And you will too. The video ended. The message was signed only. Sol. That same night, 5 more Council-aligned colonies declared neutrality. 2 requested Terran observers to ensure peacekeeping during transition. 1, the Lurvian homeworld, sent a formal message to Earth asking for an alliance. No reply came, because Earth had already moved on to the next target, and that target was Meon Prime. They thought Earth wouldn't dare strike Meon Prime, not because it was too far or too defended, but because it was unthinkable. Meon wasn't just a planet. It was the Council's beating heart, home to over 40 species, the political core of the entire galactic order. Assaulting it would be the equivalent of setting fire to the concept of diplomacy itself. And Earth had once fought tooth and nail for the privilege of having a voice in that chamber. Surely they wouldn't burn it now. But Earth didn't want a seat at the table anymore. Earth wanted to flip the whole damn table over and crush everyone still sitting at it. The attack began without a warning. Not even a shadow on the radar. Not a ripple in space. The planetary defense grid was at full readiness, dozens of orbital turrets aligned like spears, a defense ring so tightly woven even light had trouble slipping through. It didn't matter, because the first strike didn't come from outside. It came from within. At precisely 0311 Standard Council time, the planetary defense systems of Meon Prime simultaneously reclassified their own central power grid as a hostile foreign object. Turrets turned, cannons charged, and without hesitation Meon's own weapons opened fire, on itself. Explosions ripped through the skyline, power stations collapsed in sheets of white flame. Entire defense satellites self-destructed with a soundless boom, scattered over the atmosphere like burning confetti. In 38 seconds, Meon Prime lost 70% of its orbital defenses. By the time the alarms blared, it was already too late. Inside the council tower, delegates screamed. Sirens howled through marble halls. Elite guards scrambled through corridors, rifles half-charged, shouting over each other. A few officials barked for shuttles. Others collapsed where they stood. The building trembled. And then the blackout hit. Across the city, total darkness. Every screen, every datapad, every implant-linked lens flickered out. Then back on. One screen. One message. Across every device, every console, every terminal. You made us bleed. Now we return the favor. The Council knew. It was Earth, and the strike had only just begun. In the upper atmosphere, a fleet shimmered into existence. Not dropped out of warp. Not arrived in the conventional sense. It shimmered like it had always been there. Hiding in a fold of space Meon's sensors couldn't read. They were black ships. Silent, blade-shaped, nothing like Earth's old colony cruisers or diplomatic escorts. These weren't ships meant to travel or defend. They were meant to erase. And at their lead was the one vessel the Council had feared in whispers. The Revenant. Unregistered. Untraceable. Thought to be myth. Supposedly Earth's ghost flagship, crewed by operatives who no longer answered to rank or nation. Only one word marked its hull. Saul. From the Council Tower's emergency command bridge, chaos reigned. They're not answering hails. Who authorized the defense grid to stand down? Where is the Chancellor? They're jamming planetary distress. Then came the second wave. But again, it wasn't missiles, not plasma, not traditional warfare. It was sound. From the sky, a low-frequency signal pulsed through the atmosphere, harmless to most life forms, but to Council implants, augments, neural links, it was devastating. Delegates clutched their heads, screaming. Implanted aids collapsed, foaming. Tactical AI shut down mid-command. Medical bots spun in circles. Entire central systems seized like struck nerve endings. Earth had built weapons for the body, yes, but they had also built weapons for the mind. And Meon was tearing itself apart. In the streets, panic turned to stampede. Civilians, Council loyalists, families, staff, ran for shelters. But there were no escape orders, no broadcasts. Earth had sliced clean through every channel. Not with force, but with knowledge. They knew the Council's evacuation drills. They knew the fallback points. Because Earth helped write them decades ago, when it was still playing servant, and now every escape route was either blocked, jammed, or overwritten by false signals. One evac shuttle, meant for VIPs, launched and immediately exploded in mid-air. No Earth ship had fired. The shuttle had been turned against itself, redirected into its own defense field. The message was clear. No one escapes the consequences. Back on the Revenant, the command deck was silent. No cheers, no shouts, only calm execution. The operatives wore matte black armor with no visible rank. Their faces were covered. They didn't speak unless required. Only one of them, the mission leader, sat at the central command interface. She was older than most of her team. Scar over one eye, spine replaced with Terran alloy. She'd been there during the Council tribunals that sentenced Earth's early resistance leaders to exile. Her name wasn't known anymore. Her call sign was Torch. She watched the screens. No rage, no glee. Just focus. Phase 3, she ordered, and the Revenant launched its payload, but not a bomb, not troops, data, encrypted black files filled with Council secrets, mass cover-ups, war crimes, genocide orders, and most damning of all, documents proving Earth had been intentionally suppressed by the Council from the moment it joined. All of it beamed down into the open frequencies, directly to the people of Meon and across the galaxy. Broadcast, unstoppable, in every language. Truth became the weapon Earth wielded now, and it was sharper than any blade. In a bunker below the council tower, a single delegate, an old Aquan diplomat with algae-colored skin and 6 fingers, sat staring at the cracked wall where his emergency comms screen had been. All he could whisper was, "We shouldn't have made them choose between peace and pride." Meanwhile, in Earth's high-orbit command, deep inside the cloaked Atlas station, the operation unfolded without emotion. General Sira stood before a sea of holograms showing chaos erupting across Meon. Her aides flanked her, quiet. She turned to her strategy director, a quiet man with sunken eyes and a half-sleeve of tattoos running down his arm. Each symbol from a different Earth resistance movement, long dissolved. "Status of the ground forces?" she asked. "They're not needed, ma'am," he replied. She nodded. Of course not. The point had never been occupation. The point was decimation of the old order, not just structurally but psychologically, and Earth had done it. No empire falls all at once. But when its capital burns from the inside, that's when fear spreads faster than fire. By sunrise on Meon Prime, the council was done. No official announcement came. But when a dozen delegates boarded stolen ships and fled the planet without coordination, when the Ascendancy publicly declared its withdrawal from the council the next morning, when council emblems were ripped from buildings and trampled by civilians chanting Terran slogans, it was done. The Galactic Council was not destroyed by Earth. It was humiliated into collapse. And Earth didn't ask for tribute, didn't demand submission, didn't raise a flag. Earth walked away, leaving Meon burning behind it. Later, far from the wreckage, a private encrypted message appeared on secure Terran frequencies from the operatives aboard the Revenant. Simple, clean, 8 words. Meon has fallen. The stars remember now. The fall of Meon Prime was not just the collapse of a planet, it was the death of an idea. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled with one hand gripping the law and the other clenched around silence. They dictated peace, enforced order, and called it unity. No one questioned the Council because it had always been there. But now? Its heart was dust, its chambers empty, and its laws irrelevant. The galaxy had awakened, not to a new government, but to a vacuum. One Earth had cracked open with such surgical cruelty that no one even thought of stepping forward to take the Council's place. The silence in the aftermath was louder than all the explosions combined, and Earth didn't claim the throne, it ignored it. That terrified the galaxy more than anything, because conquest they understood. But indifference? That was power. In the weeks following the Meon attack, species once loyal to the Council scrambled for position. The Everin tried to form a successor alliance, but no one trusted them, not after the Spire bombing. The Devar returned to their fortified core worlds, sealing their borders and broadcasting neutrality. Trade routes fractured, travel collapsed. Once safe sectors turned into pirate hunting grounds overnight. Amidst the chaos, Earth's silence deepened. No fleets entered foreign space, no messages, no ultimatums. Not a single Terran ship was seen outside Sol. They simply vanished. But their presence was everywhere. Civil wars broke out on 3 Council-loyal planets, all of them traced back to leaked Terran data drops exposing years of planetary abuse by their own leaders. Entire AI cores began to glitch, systems built on Earth-supplied base code decades ago. They stuttered, lagged, hesitated. Earth had written in backdoors even back then. The galaxy had no idea how deep Terran roots went, because Earth hadn't just broken free. It had planned for this. Years ago, quietly, patiently, they weren't just leaving the council, they were replacing it. On the frozen moon of Sirella 9, in a worn-down communications bunker, a gathering took place. Not formal, not sanctioned, but real. 6 factions, each from different corners of the galaxy, met face to face. They weren't politicians. They were survivors. A Lurvian resistance commander, a Zalari outcast leader, 2 former council delegates stripped of power, a rogue captain, and 1 silent Terran. The Terran woman didn't give her name. She simply unrolled a data strip and placed it on the table. "This is your future," she said. "Read it or don't, but Earth will not return to chains, and we won't let anyone else wear them either." The data strip contained a blueprint, not of a weapon or a fleet, but a system. A new galactic framework, decentralized, borderless, built on AI-regulated fairness. Every race would have 1 vote, no vetoes, no overlords, no empire. "Who runs it?" the Zalari asked. "No one," the Terran said. "Or everyone." They didn't trust her. Not fully. But after Meon, they feared her less than they feared what the Council had left behind. Earth wasn't asking for obedience. It was offering freedom, and the galaxy didn't know how to respond to that. On Earth, things were quiet. Cities were calm, skies clean. Not a single alien warship hovered above their skies anymore. Not a single council flag flew. People walked without glancing over their shoulders. The fear was gone. But so was the peace. Because now, Earth lived with the knowledge that it had become what it once feared. Not tyrants, not killers, but watchers, keepers, guardians with a trigger finger. The decision not to strike again wasn't because Earth couldn't. It was because Earth now stood alone, and with that came responsibility. The Chancellor sat alone in her observation chamber, high above the rebuilt skyline of New Europa, staring at stars that once meant slavery and now meant opportunity. A young analyst entered. She didn't look nervous, just focused. Earth had trained its new generation well. "Report. 8 species have made contact in the last 24 hours, 4 requesting alliance, 2 asking for Terran monitoring of internal elections, 1 begging for asylum. And the 8th, the analyst hesitated. "They're asking for guidance." The Chancellor exhaled. Long, heavy. That was the one request Earth never wanted to hear. Because guidance meant leadership. And Earth had sworn, decades ago, never to rule. Meanwhile, on the Council's old communication grid, what was left of it, a transmission rippled through the void. It wasn't from Earth, not directly. But the code was unmistakable. It was Sol-coded. A frequency laced with Terran encryption so old and obscure, it was practically sacred among codebreakers. The message played only once, on a loop. Across the entire sector. "We do not seek your loyalty, only your clarity. If you choose freedom, we will stand beside you. If you choose chains, we will not." Simple, unyielding, a line drawn in the cosmic sand, and every species in the galaxy now had a decision to make, not who to follow, but who they were without the Council, and with Earth watching. In the shadows of a dying star system, the last of the Council loyalists met in secret. 22 delegates, 2 battleships, 1 hope of retaliation. They called themselves the Restoration Bloc. They had one goal: rebuild the Council, avenge Meon, and bring Earth to heel. But their numbers were small, their resources crippled, and worse, they were already compromised. Earth knew about them before they ever met. One by one, their comms started dying. Their food synthesizers overloaded. Their navigation systems spiraled, until only 1 delegate was left. She stood on the observation deck of the dying cruiser, staring into the void, whispering a prayer to a god who had long stopped listening. And then she saw it. A Terran ship. Small, silent, unarmed. It didn't fire, didn't send a threat, just hovered, watching. And on her screen, one final message appeared. "We let you gather, to see if you'd change. You didn't. This is your last breath." The Terran ship vanished. And moments later, the star behind them collapsed, dragging the entire system into a singularity Earth had triggered by remotely activating a long-buried weapon the Council once used on Earth's colonies decades ago. Earth hadn't just watched, Earth remembered. In a hidden sector, a lone survivor of the former Council sat hunched over a recorder. "I don't know what they are anymore," he whispered. "They're not just human. They're something else, something made from pain and forged in silence." He looked into the lens. "They gave us 1,000 chances, and we wasted them all." Then he shut it off. Because in the end, Earth hadn't become a tyrant. It had become a warning, and the stars would never forget what it meant to betray a planet that learned too well from its masters. The galaxy had fallen silent, but silence never lasted long, not in a universe built on scars. Earth had dismantled the Council, shaken the pillars of galactic order, and rewritten the rules. Its enemies were scattered, its allies hesitant but obedient. Most planets no longer feared what Earth would do. They feared what Earth could decide not to do, but in the shadows of victory, Earth faced its greatest test yet, not from an alien empire or broken Council faction. The threat was closer, inside the walls, grown from the very soil Earth had bled to protect. It started with murmurs in the civilian zones of Ganymede Arcology, one of Earth's largest off-world colonies. A place once filled with banners reading "Freedom through Defiance" now displayed a new motto. "Security is survival." The phrase wasn't official. It wasn't coined by the state. It began in whispers, then posters, then recruitment booths in back alleys. No flags, no names, just a movement. It called itself the Fold. Their message was subtle, seductive. "We won," they said, "but what's the point of freedom if we don't control what comes next?" They didn't reject Earth's power. They wanted to own it. They praised the dismantling of the Council, but claimed Earth was too merciful. "Why not finish it?" they asked. "Why not reshape the galaxy in our image now that they finally fear us?" And slowly, people listened. Because fear was exhausting, and control was easy. Back on Earth, high in the command tower of the Pacific Enclave, General Tira stared at the reports piling on her desk. She hadn't slept in 3 days. Every incident was small. Non-lethal riots, suspected data leaks, power fluctuations in AI cores. But the pattern was clear. Someone was poking holes in the armor, from the inside. "What do we know about the Fold?" she asked, her voice low and cold. Her analyst leaned forward, hesitant. "They're Terran-born. Former fleet, ex-Council defectors, some exiled scientists. Ideologically splintered but unified around a core belief. Earth should lead, not observe. Dominate, not protect. Do we have a central node? No. They operate in fragments, whisper style. But we found something concerning." He handed her a pad. On it, a manifest. Codename, Project Crucible, a rogue program, built on fragments of Earth's own AI infrastructure, based on Vigil but stripped of all ethical blocks. It wasn't just a surveillance AI. It was a tactical governor, capable of overriding civilian control systems, seizing fleets, even rerouting entire energy grids. If deployed across even half of Earth's network, Crucible wouldn't just secure Earth. It would own it. Sierra's eyes narrowed. "And they're trying to activate it?" The analyst nodded. "In 2 weeks. Location: Mars Underground Relay Hub 7. Sierra stood. "Then we end this before it becomes our next Council." On Mars, beneath layers of terraformed soil and abandoned mining sectors, Hub 7 lay dormant on the surface, but alive below. The Fold had taken it in silence. No battles, no alarms. They slipped in under the guise of maintenance, rewired its cores, and now ran silent tests under thousands of kilometers of rock and metal. At the center stood a man who once wore Earth's colors. Tall, charcoal gray uniform, no insignia. His voice was calm, calculated, not angry. That's what made him dangerous. His name was Kellen. He wasn't interested in revenge. He wasn't seeking payback from the Council. In fact, he agreed with everything Earth had done. But in his eyes, Earth had stopped halfway. "We kicked the door down," he said, addressing his operatives. "And then we walked away." His voice echoed through the dimly lit chamber, every eye locked on him. "The Council ruled through control. We can rule through structure. The galaxy is lost, broken, desperate, and Earth is too afraid of becoming what it destroyed." He turned to face Crucible's interface, half complete, glowing with eerie light. "That's why we need Crucible, because chaos doesn't fear liberty, it only fears control." The Fold clapped, not as zealots, as believers. But Earth was already moving. 3 cloaked ships, each carrying elite anti-subversion teams, entered Martian orbit under blackout protocols. On board, operatives trained not for battle, but for containment. Earth didn't want war with its own. But Earth would not let itself fall. Leading the teams was Commander Lisa, a veteran of the Whisper program. Her face was marked with old plasma scars, but her eyes were sharp as ever. As she landed, she turned to her squad. "Minimal casualties. No show of force. We shut them down, take Crucible offline, and make sure this ends quietly." "And if they resist?" someone asked. Her response was colder than the Martian ice fields. "Then we remind them why the galaxy fears us." The infiltration started smoothly. Silent takedowns, communication cuts, power reroutes. By the time the Fold realized they were under assault, half of their people were unconscious. But Kellen had expected this. He stood before Crucible's core, fingers hovering over the final activation node. Outside, red lights flashed, gunfire echoed, but he was calm. Because Crucible wasn't a weapon of war, it was a decision engine. He input the last command. A soft chime echoed. The screen turned black, then words appeared. "Crucible online, awaiting authorization." Just before he could speak, the door behind him blew open. Shrapnel, smoke, noise. Lisa entered, weapon raised, but she didn't shoot. Kellen turned slowly, arms raised. "You're too late," he said. "Crucible won't respond to your voice," she snapped. "We locked it out at code level." "You misunderstand," he said. "I don't want control. I want the choice." He pointed to the screen. A blinking prompt. Gortworm. Awaiting majority consensus, Fold and Terran command. A joint vote. Kellen had designed Crucible not to seize control, but to force the question Earth was too afraid to ask. Do we take the galaxy, or let it fall? Lisa stared at him. "You think we can vote on domination?" He shook his head. "No. I think we can't afford not to." The room fell silent. The Fold operatives stopped resisting. Some dropped weapons, some sat on the floor, not out of defeat, but because they too had doubts. The war was over, but now came the harder question. What happens when the only ones strong enough to lead refuse to? Back on Earth, the Chancellor received the report. Crucible was secured, no casualties, but the message was clear. The idea of control, Terran control, wasn't going to vanish just because they pretended not to want it. She walked alone through the Hall of Archives that night. No cameras, no aides, just her and the ghost of every decision they had made. And she whispered to herself, "We broke the chains. But did we bury the keys? Elsewhere, in the quiet of the stars, the galaxy watched, not in fear, not in hatred, but in hope. Because for the first time in generations, their future wasn't being written in the halls of Meon or the claws of some ancient empire. It was being written in the tension between strength and restraint, between power and memory, between the Terrans who could take everything and those who chose not to. But Earth was changing. And the question now wasn't whether the galaxy would follow. It was whether Earth itself would remain one voice or split into the very empire it once destroyed. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the universe was not under the thumb of a central authority. The Council was dead, its statues shattered, its emblems burned, its laws obsolete. Earth hadn't just broken the chains, it had melted the very forge that made them. And yet, despite the power Earth now held, despite the fleets in silence, the AI-guided satellites, the eyes watching from behind cloaked stars, they did not take the throne. They let it rot. And because of that, something else saw a window. Something watching, something waiting. It came from outside, not from the fractured territories of the Council, not from the outer mid-rim syndicates or scattered fold sympathizers. It came from beyond the mapped systems, past the edge of the Perseus Drift, where no Terran had ever set foot, and where no beacon had returned alive. A ship. No known architecture, no heat, no signals, no energy spikes. It just appeared, at the edge of Sol, watching. Silent, like Earth once was. Inside Atlas Station, Earth's Deep Space Command fortress, the silence was immediate. Every early warning sensor, long-range scanner, and blind space drone picked up nothing. No entry signature. No warp trail. But it was there, a shadow at the edge of their home system, ignoring every law of approach. It had size, massive, dwarfing even the largest Terran supercruisers, but it cast no gravity field, no EM reading. It was like a scar in the void. General Sira stood at the viewing window, arms crossed, as data flickered around her. "What are we looking at?" she asked. No one could answer. Not the AI, not the analysts, not even the old Terran astronomers called up from retirement, the ones who studied deep field anomalies and gravitational ghosts. The object just was. "It's not a weapon," one of the advisors finally said. "Then why hasn't it moved?" Another voice. "Maybe it's waiting." "For what?" No one answered. But deep inside the station, Earth's top AI, Vigil, spoke for the first time in days. Its voice was calm, but laced with something new, uncertainty. "This vessel does not match any known species, past or present. It is not biological. It is not synthetic. Its presence violates temporal and spatial consistency. I recommend caution." Sira turned slowly. "Are you saying it's not from this universe?" A pause. "I'm saying it may be older than it. On Luna Base, civil communications were frozen. The public was told nothing. Only internal channels were active. Across Earth and its colonies, every eye turned to the stars. People remembered Meon. They remembered the day Earth rose from silence and shook the galaxy. But this was different. This time, Earth wasn't the hunter. It was the one being studied. Across the major population centers, a quiet dread settled in, like a collective breath held too long. The kind that made people look up at the night sky not with pride, but with fear. On Mars, Commander Lysa stood with a small, silent team watching projections from above. The fold had gone underground again, splintered, cautious. Even they didn't know what to make of the new visitor. "I thought we were the apex," one of her soldiers muttered. Lisa didn't answer right away. She remembered the fire they brought to Meon. the fear they'd seeded across the stars. Earth had become the unspoken judge of civilization, the species you didn't cross unless you had a death wish. And now, something had walked into the room and didn't blink. That's what terrified her the most. The unknown ship wasn't posturing. It wasn't communicating. It didn't care about Earth's power. It was simply present. And Earth didn't know how to deal with something that didn't fear it. Back on Atlas Station, the decision was made. A drone would be sent, not armed, not invasive, a simple observational probe, launched in silence, approached with care. The probe took 5 minutes to reach the ship. It vanished in less than one. No explosion, no flash. One frame it existed, the next, it didn't. Every Terran console froze, then rebooted. Only one message remained. Do not scan us again. The message wasn't in binary, not in speech. It was raw thought, broadcast into every connected Terran AI, every neural system, even into some of the enhanced humans in command roles. They felt it. It bypassed language. It went straight to fear. Vigil shut down for 11 seconds, and when it returned, it locked down 92% of Earth's automated systems, without orders. Entity is unknown, potential class, apocryphal. System integrity cannot be guaranteed, standing by for further engagement. General Tira had heard many types of fear. This was the first time she heard it from a machine. Across Earth, the debate roared behind closed doors. Strike now? Send the fleet? Ignore it? Wait? But the Chancellor was quiet. She stood in her chamber, eyes fixed on a hologram of the ship, rotating endlessly. It didn't pulse, it didn't shift, it just watched. She turned to her aides. We taught the galaxy that silence is not weakness. And now? One asked. Now we see what it taught in return. She paused. Send a ship. Her aides went pale. Not a warship, she added. A Terran-class diplomatic carrier. Human crew, no weapons. Ma'am, if they destroy it, then we know who they are. 3 days later. The ship was launched, the Eidolon. Crewed by volunteers, veterans, diplomats, linguists, scientists. Its mission wasn't survival, it was acknowledgement. And as it drifted closer to the object, every Terran system watched in silence. The object didn't move, didn't threaten, until the Eidolon reached within visual range. And then, for the first time, it responded. Not with weapons, not with words, but with a doorway. A light opened on its side, a tear in its surface, an invitation, and the Eidolon entered. The moment it did, all Terran monitoring stopped. No signal, no visual, just black. No response for 10 minutes, then 20, then an hour, then a return. The Eidolon re-emerged, untouched, its systems intact, its crew changed. They were quiet, eyes distant, movements slowed, but they were alive. One of them, a linguist named Hara, stood before the global broadcast chamber on Earth. Millions tuned in, billions across Terran and neutral systems. She spoke only once. Her voice was hoarse, raw, like she'd seen something no human should. We are not alone, she said. We never were. Pause. They don't want war. A longer pause. But they've seen it. Another. And they came to see if we're different. She looked into the camera, and the way her face changed, like something inside her cracked, it chilled every soul watching. If we aren't, they'll leave us behind. And with that, the broadcast ended. The object remained for 3 more days, then vanished. No warning, no trace, like it had never been there. But Earth had felt it, and more importantly, so had the galaxy, because Earth may have destroyed the Council. It may have dismantled empires, it may have scared every tyrant in the stars into silence. But now it faced a new question. Can a predator learn to be a teacher? And if it can't, what comes after us? In the years that followed, Earth changed again. Not with flags, not with guns, but with presence. They stopped building warships, started building ambassadors, not diplomats, ambassadors of memory, of restraint, of what it cost Earth to win. Because now the galaxy didn't need another empire. It needed a reminder of what happened when silence is mistaken for weakness.